Oh, Han, you're so crazy. Oh, I, I noticed you there. It was time for another rant. It seems as though today I was set in a particular state of emotions. It made me have to defend yet another friend. And I wasn't necessarily sure how to react in this situation. Repair, being preemptive in such situations always tickles my brain. I'm going to go back in my normal voice now. But yeah, usually in the circumstance of helping a friend, I feel as though I don't have to. I don't think there should always be a time that you know when you meet a friend and there's another friend in front of you that you should be always forever in their favor by you know by giving them the chance to act by themselves. Only when they truly need it should you ever have to even step in to enact the full presence of your actions. Um, for instance, I've been in numerous situations where my friends have, you know, or freshmen, for instance, have been in awkward situations where the right amount of thought is just not enough. I mean, and for me to give them the guidelines, to give my friends the guidelines, doesn't necessarily mean they'll always go through with it. I've read in numerous circumstances that, and I know personally myself in numerous circumstances where they'll automatically take what in consideration what you're saying for the moment, but they won't necessarily consider it in the long term. It's all, and I can attest that to myself too, because I know for a fact that if I learn something, I'm not going to subject it to merely the observation of my peers. I'm going to more than likely I'm going to more than likely take one side and then take another, and then when I go outside into my surrounding environment, I'm going to put them together. And once I've done that, then I can grasp that concept. Then I can, accurately accurately come to the conclusion myself. I don't think in any means that you should think think on a level that requires you to, think of knowledge first. Because if you think of knowledge first, what you think of is the theoretical systems that hold our world together. You should never have to go back to the simple thoughts that Venetian guys did, or maybe the prophets in the Bible did at one point. I have nothing against religion or those guys for that matter. They were quite, you know, they were quite. It required the thought of their time. But today is a different time. These are different times where things are changing. You know, males are now presented in a circumstance where they have to adapt to the nature of women in a different way, and the laws of attraction have changed because women are more independent, and that's naturally a fact. We as men, and as women, there are women that still believe in the old-fashioned sense of things, and if your kids grow up, they're not going to take that same level of thought you do into their lives. So it's always best to change your ideas to the thoughts at hand. You should never take. If I read The Art of War or something like that, or maybe the Tao Te Ching, I'm not going to apply them 100% to what I'm hearing today. There's at first, for instance, when I first read The Art of War, no, not The Art of War, the Book of Five Rings. In the beginning, it had the way of walking alone. And then one of the tenets in walking alone is 21 steps, and it says that you should not love. And I personally didn't believe in that. Whereas I didn't know the standpoint he was coming from. And in terms, love for me, it kind of does get in the way for certain things. If it is not beneficial to both parties in a sense, then intrinsically you're both inhibiting each other's desires, both each other's dreams. One is intrinsically having to sacrifice each other's, dreams to meet the others. So, in a sense, love isn't necessarily a great thing, and in fact can be quite, distracting in a college setting. Maybe I don't want all that at this point, and so maybe I'll just work on how I approach women and how I how I adapt to this this unique world that I am in. And I won't tell my children, hey, this is how you get women, this is how you do such and such, because it's not all about what I learned. It's more about how they are openly acknowledging the experiences themselves, because that's what truly matters. And and in terms of and in terms of your friends and family, it should be no different. You shouldn't have to tell them these things that you know, because their experiences could be entirely different than yours. There's a statement: nothing is true, everything is proven. It does not necessarily mean that nothing is true. However, it means that on a scale of, after a certain point, there's only so much action you can take that isn't preemptive, that isn't that isn't that isn't required. Like, life doesn't go by guidelines. That's not how we were. I mean, if you believe in a traditional sense of science, from the atomical scale to the point of to where we are now, it is a unique structure. But this structure is not based on a series of rules. There's the uncertainty principle. There's no way you can accurately predict what's coming moment after moment after moment. So the fact of the matter is that you have to be prepared for the fact that it's going to change right before your eyes. And I think some people have a problem with this, but the fact of the matter is that 90% of the time, the information that you have within yourself does not apply to others. No matter how many rants that I put out, no matter how many talks that I have with a person, it's not going to necessarily matter, because I'll find people that'll still go out and party and then come back to me like a month later and be like, oh shit, you were right, man. Maybe I shouldn't party so hard, man. Some shit like that. And personally, I'm all for all that partying and shit. I just don't think you should. I think you should do it in doses. I don't think you should just like ram it on all of the time. Because I've been in that circumstance. Maybe, man, like a couple of days ago, I went to like 8 different tracks, and I got my party on real hard. But I don't think, I don't condone that when I'm like in school, when I'm actually engaged in class, because then it's like it's the worst kind of distraction. I mean, and it's a self-run distraction, and that's one of the worst, because then you're fighting with your own emotions. That's cut for another one. We're talking about advice here, so in terms of experience with advice, it's never a good point. It's always been a moot point with me to give advice on life, because I think while some things are universal, I can't force you to go out. I can't. You can only lead a horse to water. You can't make it drink. So for it to realize that it's thirsty and have to drink, for it to do that, it requires experience. Like I told, like I was in a conversation with my mother earlier. The fire was invented for you to inflict pain at first, but then eventually control it. There's we now feed our families with fire. We now treat it with fire. But there was at one point where it was the hellish experience. Nobody wanted to touch that shit. It was burning fire. But I mean, that's the point of it. I mean, you adapt after a while. But the point is that after you adapt, because you know that things are going to change, you should keep changing. And that's the point that you want to drive home with your friends or anybody that you love, is that even though they met those circumstances and those trials well, is that they have to keep going at it. They have to keep them up the motion. Because if they don't, then eventually what they've already, the motion that they set in their head, I mean, it's easy for us as humans to engage in one particular activity, but if they keep that activity going on and on and on, and they'll fail eventually. Nothing. The same method is never good in the long term. It can always bring, you know, an inevitable destruction. So that's it for today. By the way, I recorded this in my underwear.